So including our graded system, sir, and especially, sir,
Okay, thank you, Jude. You made mention of the expectations, okay, that you have to learn about the course. You also made mention of the grading system, the requirement, and of course, our discussion as regards the connection of the course towards the attainment of the graduate attributes of USL. So thank you, Jude, for letting us or helping us reminisce or remember what transpired from yesterday's video conference. Okay, so today we will start or we will discuss the first lesson in this course in Edu 1093. Except if Crystal would like to share, because Crystal, you might want to share something.
Nakamute. Sir?
You might want to say anything or say something. Should I say?
Uh,
Wala.
wala na, sir.
Sure ka?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sige. Okay, so may we then start our discussion on lesson 1 of this course.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, Joshua? So we now proceed to our discussion on outcomes-based education. And the subtitle of the presentation is OBE towards learning achievement. So later on, this is the big idea actually of the whole lesson, that OBE, okay, that OBE is for learning achievement. That OBE, okay, has been proposed or has been used by schools as the framework, as the educational framework or educational theory to ensure that learners are achieving what they are expected to achieve, what they're expected to be able to do after learning a certain course or after learning in a formal educational institution. We just have to remind ourselves again of this content of the lesson 1. As we have said, lesson 1 is on shift of educational focus from content to learning outcomes with those intended learning outcomes. With this performance-based assessment, later on you will be asked to formulate learning outcomes based on given educational objectives. And the following activities, we are now doing video conferencing, discussion forum, you'll do that later. Learning from a video clip, of course, I hope that you already have checked the new LMS, because there are video clips being provided in the LMS content that you need to watch and you need to learn from. And of course, you will be asked to complete a worksheet, okay, for this course. And of course, a quiz will be given to you after we discuss everything about lesson 1. The subtopics of our discussion of our main topic agenda for today are the following. We will try to explore, okay, the shift from input-based to outcomes-based education in the 21st century teaching and learning, or in the current teaching and learning practice. We make use of outcomes-based education. Okay, and so we will check later the difference between an input-based to outcomes-based education. And of course, we will also be classifying the characteristics of real outcomes-based education, not the traditional outcomes-based education. So aside from input-based education, there's outcomes-based education, but sometimes schools make use of traditional outcomes-based education. We say traditional because sometimes the characteristics of input-based or the features of input-based are still being done by schools implementing outcomes-based education. If in case that OBE is practiced in schools, but there are features of input-based education being practiced still, then that is a traditional outcomes-based education. And when we say going beyond the traditional outcomes-based education, we are referring to the real, okay, outcomes-based education, the real OBE. And later on, we'll also be discussing about outcomes in education and outcomes of OBE. Okay, what are expected, okay, to be achieved by learners if schools will make use of the outcomes-based education. Okay, have you heard of the OBE already? Have you already heard of the concept OBE?
Ngayon lang po, sir.
Ayan,
Ngayon
lang
lang.
po. Okay.
Okay, so you never have encountered the term OBE yet.
Sir?
Have you never encountered the term OBE or the term
No, sir.
outcomes-based education? Not yet. How about in your readings?
No, sir.
Have you not read of any article about outcomes-based education?
No po, sir.
Wala din. Okay then, sige. So we now proceed to the first subtopic, okay, the shift from input-based to outcomes-based education. Please take note that in the traditional classroom setting during our time, okay, that was during our time, that learners or children in schools are considered by teachers as tabula rasa. Have you encountered that term, tabula rasa?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
what does that mean?
Blank slate.
Spain.
Blank tablets or blank
Blank
vessel.
tablet.
Okay, that the brains of our learners are likened to a blank vessel, a blank, an empty jar, or a blank tablet. And because learners' brain are considered as such, what should teachers do? Anyone? If learners' brain are considered as empty vessel or empty jar or blank tablet, what are expected of teachers?
They are expected to fill the tablet, sir.
Okay, very good. They're expected to fill the tablet or to write something in that empty tablet, into that blank tablet, or to fill something into that blank vessel or empty jar. Okay, who answered the question again?
Princess po.
Princess. Thank you, Princess. Oh yeah, I have to announce that Princess was the only student who got a perfect score in the first sharing of the learning takeaway. Okay, congratulations, Princess, for that, and I hope the others would also be motivated to do the same. Again, when you are asked to share a learning takeaway, you have to consider your grammar and spelling, and of course, you have to consider your the relevance and the content, or answering the question with brevity and substance. Okay, now that's right, because learners, okay, because learners are considered as empty vessel. Hence, the role of teachers to fill in that vessel, to put something to that vessel, to write something into that blank tablet. So students would learn something. So students would acquire that knowledge that we expect them acquire from what teachers are inputting in them, what teachers are teaching them. Right? That was the time. Remember, that was the time that there's scarcity of textbooks, scarcity of information. That information cannot just be easily shared. Okay, that was the time that there were textbooks, teacher's manual, and others. Okay, hence the role of teachers to merely fill in, to merely put something into an empty jar or empty vessel. But that is what we mean by input-based education. Everything lies on the role of the teacher. Everything, all learning has to come from the teacher. Okay? All learning has to be derived from the input of the teacher. That is input-based education. But take note that the establishment of a knowledge society, okay? Remember, with the invention of the internet, where information can easily disperse, where information can easily be disseminated, where information can easily be accessed by anyone else. Okay? There is the advancement of technology. And because there is advancement of technology, there is instantaneous sharing of information or instant sharing of information. If I would like to know about, for example, if I would like to know about playing the guitar, then I just have to make use of the YouTube, search for videos showing how guitars are being played. Then students may just learn from the information provided by the internet. There is borderless communication and interaction. Before, it's difficult to communicate with people in faraway places, with people in far-flung areas, with people in other countries, with people in other spaces. But today, with advancement of technology, everything has become borderless. Everything has become limitless. We can see people living in US, for example. We can communicate with people in Canada, in Tuvalu, in Tonga, in Vanuatu, in the Pacific, okay, and others. It's because of the knowledge society, which resulted to advancement of technology. The coming of the world together. The different countries are coming together because of the advancement of technology. If we would like to conduct a webinar, for example, a seminar, for example, then anybody in any part of the world may attend our webinar because of technology. Diba? Dati-rati, ngayon talaga napaka-advance na ngayon. Ngayon wala na masyadong gumagamit ng text message sa cellphone. Most of us are making use of the messenger now to communicate with people, to communicate with others. That is what we mean by the change now, okay? And because of all these things, it's because of all these things that we have to ask ourselves, that you have to ask yourselves as future teachers, and I have to ask myself as a teacher, what are learners expected of in today's world? If the world is being converted into a knowledge society, if the world has become so instantaneous, if the world has come together, has come nearer, then what should I expect my learners? Okay, what should I expect of my learners in today's world? Remember that students are not prepared only for the acquisition of professional knowledge. With advancement of technology, skills will no longer just be about acquisition of professional knowledge, would no longer just be about filling in their empty jars. But students must be able to perform hands-on work and knowledge, application, replication in different work settings and societies. With the fast-changing world, then we also have to allow our learners, okay, we also have to train our learners then to perform what they're supposed to do in the actual work setting, in the actual societies. And they should possess such generic, all-round is whole person development attributes like a lifelong learning aptitude, teamwork, attitudes, communication skills, etc., in order to face the ever-changing world and society. Hence, outcomes-based education is about preparing learners of what they are supposed to do in life after their formal education. It's about preparing workplace-ready individuals in schools. It's about teaching them the necessary skills, okay, appropriate for the ever-changing world or society. Okay? Now look at this. Okay? This is now a diagram. This is the diagram showing us how outcomes-based education, okay, how outcomes-based education is being implemented in schools. And later on, as we go through, we will be discussing, okay, the elements of these diagram. Now, what then is outcomes-based education? Outcomes-based education clearly focuses then and organizes everything in an educational system around what is essential for all learners to be able to do successfully at the end of their learning experiences. Okay? Outcomes-based education is about identifying the relevant skills that learners have to demonstrate, that learners have to perform, that learners have to be able to do at the end of the learning experience we ask them participate in. Okay? So there are three basic premises of outcomes-based education. Ito, that OBE believes in these three premises. The first one, all can learn and succeed. Diba dati-rati, sa isang traditional na silid-aralan ay mayroong mga guro na wala nang pakialam sa klase ng estudyante na meron sila. Dahil mayroong mga guro na naniwala na wala nang pag-asa ang isang estudyante, hindi na talaga matututo yung estudyante iyan. Na estudyante niya na sadyang mahina na kahit anong ipasok mo sa utak niya, hindi niya mauunawaan. Ganun ang pananaw ng mga guro sa traditional, okay, sa traditional na konteksto ng pag-aaral. But in OBE, okay, in OBE, this premise is being believed in by teachers and educational leaders that all can learn and succeed. Lahat tayo ay kayang matuto at kayang pagtagumpayan ang pagkatuto. Lahat tayo ay kayang matuto at kayang magtagumpay. With this statement, with this premise, this would only mean that OBE does not exempt a student from learning, does not exempt a student from the opportunity to learn, an opportunity to be successful. Meaning to say, outcomes-based education is inclusive in nature. Lahat pwede. Lahat may kakayanang matuto. Lahat may kakayanang magtagumpay. Second one, OBE also believes that success breeds success. For example, successful teaching will result to successful learning. If teachers are doing their job well, then learners will also certainly be doing their job well. Okay? And third, schools control the conditions of success. That's why if you observe in our preliminary discussion, we made mention of the graduate attributes. And that is one way that schools are controlling the conditions of success for students. Similarly, inside the classroom in OBE, teachers are merely facilitators of learning. And that is what we mean by controlling the conditions of success. Teachers are making use of rubrics as a scoring tool to provide scores to every learning output of students. That is what we mean by controlling the conditions of success. Teachers are preparing syllabi or syllabus for each subject. The syllabus itself is one way of controlling the conditions of success. So these are the three basic premises of outcomes-based education. Okay? Hence, OBE is characterized by the following. Learner-centered. Okay? Paano siya naging learner-centered? Paano siya nakasentro sa mga mag-aaral? Nakasentro siya sa mag-aaral dahil ang mga bagay-bagay, ang mga kakayanan na lilinangin ng guro sa mga mag-aaral ay yaong mga kakayanan na kakailanganin ng mga mag-aaral sa pang-araw-araw na pamumuhay nila at sa workplace nila o sa lugar trabaho nila sa hinaharap. Okay? It has to be faculty-driven because the faculty controls the teachers control the conditions of success. So si teacher ang prepare ng syllabus, si teacher ang gagawa ng rubrics, si teacher mag-identify ng success indicators in assigning scores in student work or learning output. Si teacher ang facilitator of learning. That is what we mean by faculty-driven. And quality-oriented. Quality-oriented because the teacher has to teach well. Quality-oriented because everything that teachers should do inside the classroom should result into something worthwhile for learners. So reviewing the three basic premises, then this would mean that this premise, all can learn and succeed, is about OBE as being learner-centered. Okay? Success breeds success is a statement to explain OBE as quality. Ano yun? Quality
Oriented.
oriented. And the last one, that schools, okay, control the condition of success, it's about being faculty-driven. So ito yung tatlong katangian ng outcomes-based education. Okay? Outcomes-based education. Okay. Remember also that the implementation of outcomes-based education has to adhere to 4 principles. Again, we're done with the 3 basic premises. We also made use of the 3 characteristics of outcomes-based education. Now we proceed to the 4 principles of outcomes-based education. First is clarity of focus or significance. That we have to be very clear of what do we really want our learners learn from us. Of what do we, when we say learn from us, when we say learning, okay, learning is about, okay, development of the whole person. Development of the whole person, meaning to say, learning is about the cognitive development, balanced with psychomotor development, and the affective development, or knowledge, skills, and values, or knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Okay? So there has to be a clear focus of significance. What do I would like my learners understand? That is cognitive. What do I like my learners demonstrate or perform? That is psychomotor. What do I like my learners exemplify or emulate? That is affective domain or values and attitudes. Design down from where you want to end up. Okay? So, kapag nalaman mo na kung ano yung nais mong mangyari, yung mga bunga ng pagkatuto, the learning outcomes that you would like your learners do at the end or while discussing the lesson, while discussing the course, then ito na yung basihan mo. Yung mga bunga ng pagkatuto ang magiging basihan mo na para magkaroon ng disenyo ng pagkatuto, para magkaroon ng banghay aralin, yung tinatawag yung lesson plan na tinatawag natin. And expanded opportunities for students to succeed. Make sure that everything that we do inside the class, all teaching and learning activities, okay, have to be something that would allow learners succeed in our class. And when we mean when we mean succeed, then that would mean that the students should be able to attain the learning outcome through the opportunities, through the teaching and learning activities that you let them do, that you ask them do. And number 4, high expectations for quality performance. You know, teachers have to have high expectations of their students. And you know the signs of teachers having high expectations with students? A teacher has a research would tell us that a teacher has a high expectations of his learners if that teacher provides many opportunities for learners to learn. If that teacher provides all necessary resources and references so students would be able to enrich their understanding or advance their understanding of the lesson. If teachers are providing timely feedback to their students as regards their work. If teachers are checking the work of students on time. And if teachers would announce quizzes so that the students would still be given the opportunity to prepare. These are few signs from the many signs of teachers with high expectations of learners. A teacher also has high expectations of his or her learners if, before asking learners to do a learning task, he or she would explain the rubric or the success indicators in assessing or assigning score to their work later. Kapag nagawa ng guro ang mga ito, ibig sabihin, meron siyang mataas na ekspektasyon, meron siyang mataas na pagtitiwala na matututo at merong mararating ang kanyang mga mag-aaral. Okay? So these are the 4 principles of outcomes-based education. Okay? We stop sharing to give way for the question and answer. Any clarificatory question as regards the first part of our discussion on lesson 1?
Sir, I have a question po.
Yes, Princess.
So,
Please turn on your camera, please. When you ask a question, you turn on the camera. Okay.
so yung outcome-based, yung OBE po is a teaching style po ba yun? Or parang ano lang siya, sir? Parang principle, parang ganun lang po.
Okay. That's a good question. Okay, I forgot to mention that. Princess, thank you for asking the question. OBE is an educational approach to curriculum. Okay? When we say educational approach to curriculum, it refers to the whole educational system on how you are to prepare, the whole educational context. Okay? Isa siyang napakalaking teorya, okay? Isa siyang malaking teorya or hindi lang siya principle kasi it's really an educational approach on how to deal with curriculum so that learners will succeed academically in any educational institution. Okay? Katulad nito ang K-12. K-12 is also an educational approach to curriculum. Katulad din nito ang input-based education. Kapag pagsabi natin kasing approach, napakalaki, napakalawak ng kanyang sakop. Hindi lamang siya tumutukoy sa estratehiya kung paano ituro ang isang paksa sa isang aralin. Hindi lamang siya tumutukoy sa kung anong klase ng mga sanggunian o resources ang pwedeng gamitin para mapagyaman ang pag-aaral o pagkatuto ng mga mag-aaral. It's an educational approach because it cuts across the different elements of the teaching and learning process. Okay? And what are the elements of teaching and learning process? OBE has something to say about teaching. OBE has something to say about learners. OBE has something to say about teachers. OBE has something to say about pedagogy, teaching strategies. That's what we mean by pedagogy. OBE has something to say about resources or references. OBE has something to say about the educational system. OBE has something to say about the school itself. So it's wider in context. Okay, Princess?
Yes, sir. That's not.
Okay, any more clarificatory question?
Hello, sir.
Yes, Mar. Turn on your cam, Mar.
Am
Yes,
I
ma'am.
audible, sir?
Yeah. Audible, okay? Kasi may
I
mga nagkakamali.
remember when, yeah,
Audible. Ganun mo iba. Okay, sige. Mar.
uh, I remember when I was in high school, UBD was launched, and it is an educational approach, I guess. So, sir, can you enlighten us again? What is the difference between this OB and UBD?
That's a nice question also. Thank you, Mar. Yeah. Outcomes-based education is the offshoot of understanding by design or backwards design curriculum. Okay? So kumbaga, nauna si UBD, nauna si outcomes-based education na ipinropose ni William Spady. Now, after outcomes-based education, lalong nagbigay ng klarong implementasyon ng outcomes-based education etong si Grant Wiggins at ni J. McT. J. McT and Grant Wiggins are the authors of the backwards design or understanding by design. Understanding by design is an offshoot of the outcomes-based education because similarly, the UBD also starts at the end in mind. Yung sinasabi natin na magsisimula tayo sa outcomes-based education, magsisimula tayo doon sa tanong na ano ba yung gusto nating mangyari sa ating mga mag-aaral. Katulad din ng understanding by design that we have to start in the end in mind. And the end that we are referring here in understanding by design are the learning outcomes that we would like our learners perform, that we would like our learners do at the end of our discussion, at the end of our course or our subject. Okay, so parehas lang sila, Mar. Yun nga lang, mas naging klaro itong si understanding by design kasi ang tina-target niya is not the whole educational system, but it only targets the written curriculum. And when what we mean by written curriculum, we're referring to the learning plans, we're referring to the lesson plans, we're referring to the dynamic learning plan, we are referring to syllabus and others. Okay, yun lang yung limit ng understanding by design. Only for the written curriculum. And when we mean written curriculum, we're referring to syllabus, lesson plan, learning plan, daily plan, dynamic learning plan, and others. So particularly sa teacher ito, kung paano i-design ni teacher, kung paano gagawa ng isang disenyo si teacher para mahabi-habi niya ang karnasang pagkatuto ng mga estudyante para makuha niya o para makamit niya ang mga bunga ng pagkatuto na yung tinatawag nating end in mind. Okay, Mar? Klaro?
Okay, so it means that OBE is more broader than UBD. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Again, sinasabi ko nga kanina, OBE targets the whole educational context. Okay? While understanding by design particularly targets the written curriculum on how teachers have to prepare their lessons for learners, for the attainment of the learning outcomes by the learners. Okay? Thank you, Mar. This is a good discussion because there are some of you are really asking questions which are relevant and which are very important in the context of our discussion. Any more question? Thank you, Princess and Mar. How about the others? You might want to ask clarificatory question. Are there things which you find difficult to understand, or are there things that you would like to add? You would like to supplement to enrich our discussion? Okay. No more? Okay then. Kunwari merong sumagot na wala na, so ipagpapatuloy natin ang ating talakayan. Okay. So, this is a diagram showing how outcomes-based education, okay, in the classroom level, okay, is being implemented. First, we have to identify the intended learning outcomes. And what do we mean by intended learning outcomes? These are statements specifying what the learners will know and be able to do at the end of the course. Okay? What do we like them? Okay? What should my learners be able to do and be able to understand at the end of the course? Okay? Now, after identifying the learning outcomes, halimbawa sinabi ko dyan na ang aking learning outcome ay at the end, in this course, in this course, for example, students, for example, in this subject, students, at the end of this course or in this course, students will design an assessment plan demonstrating ongoing assessment. Okay? That is what I would like them do, for example. I would like them show, I would like them perform. Okay? Now, after identifying this intended learning outcome, then I have to ask myself, what should I ask them do to check whether they are meeting the intended learning outcome? That is what we mean by assessment. It is an ongoing process aims at improving students' learning by measuring the learning outcomes they have achieved. Feedback will be given so that students know what they need to do in order to get better grades. So, if I would ask my students to design an assessment timeline demonstrating ongoing assessment, okay, what assessment tasks will I ask them do for me to be able to know or to check whether they are meeting such intended learning outcome? Okay? So they are to complete, for example, a worksheet. Okay? They are to complete a worksheet that would require them to design, that would require them to identify, okay, different assessment tasks demonstrating ongoing assessment. Okay? Kung masyadong mataas yung example natin, sige, babaan natin ng konti example natin ng intended learning outcome. Halimbawa, pagkatapos ng araling ito, ang mga mag-aaral ay ang mga mag-aaral ay ang mga mag-aaral ay makapagpapaliwanag, okay? Makapagpapaliwanag ng kahalagahan ng what's Filipino in ano? Sino saksay dito? What's Filipino? What's the Filipino term for the Enlightenment period? Sige, pag yung ano na lang, yung exploration na lang. Okay, ganito. Pagkatapos ng araling ito, ang mga mag-aaral ay inaasahang makapagpapaliwanag ng kahalagahan ng panahon ng pagtuklas, okay, sa kasaysayan ng mundo o sa kasaysayan ng daigdig. Okay? So, yun ang ating intended learning outcomes or bunga ng pagkatuto. Ano kaya yung papagawa ko sa aking mga mag-aaral nang sa gano'n na masukat ko kung nakakamit ba nila yung aking bunga ng pagkatuto? Kung nakapagpapaliwanag ba sila ng kahalagahan ng panahon ng pagtuklas sa kasaysayan ng daigdig? Okay? I might ask them to write a reaction paper, okay, explaining the significance of the exploration age to the history of the world. So the reaction paper serves as the assessment. The reaction paper later will testify whether students could be able to explain the importance of the exploration stage in world history. But of course, they cannot just easily do that. We have to provide them learning activities. So to prepare them, do the assessment task. When we say learning activities, these are the teaching and learning methods which the teachers use to achieve each of the learning outcomes. Students will know exactly why they are being asked to engage in certain teaching and learning activities in their courses. For example, before I would ask them do the reaction paper, of course I have to teach them first what are the things that took place during the exploration age. Okay, ano yung nangyari ng panahon na iyon, ng kasaysayan, ano ang mga nadiskubre ng mga panahon na iyon, sino yung mga importanteng tao, okay, na naging bahagi ng panahon ng pagtuklas. Okay? So, kailangan magkaroon muna ako ng talakayan. Kailangan matulungan ko siya makagawa ng isang timeline para may pakita yung mga napakahalagang o mahalagang pangyayari sa panahon ng pagtuklas. Dahil ang mga ito, ang mga ituturo ko sa kanila, ang mga ipapagawa ko sa kanila ay makapaghahanda sa kanila upang makapagsulat sila ng isang magandang reaction paper. At yung reaction paper na ito ngayon na makapagsasabi kung talaga nga naman na ipapaliwanag nila ang kahalagahan ng panahon ng pagtuklas sa kasaysayang sa padaigdigang kasaysayan. That is what we mean by outcomes-based education. And these things, the ILO, intended learning outcomes, assessment and learning activities, all these, all these are what we mean by the learning experience of our students. If we consider these three things, then creating learning experience for learners is the center of OBE. In other words, students should be placed first in our design of the learning outcomes, assessment tasks, and teaching and learning activities. Everything that we do inside the classroom, if we are to implement the outcomes-based education, has to revolve around the learners. Okay? Has to be something that targets learners' diversity. Okay? So ito yung isang diagram na makapagpapaliwanag kung paano gawin ang outcomes-based education sa klase o sa silid paralan. So, how is OBE implemented at the classroom level? Based on that diagram, again, we do intended learning outcomes. we do the learning tasks or activities, and we do the assessment procedure. So tatlong simpleng step lang. Intended learning outcomes, learning tasks or activities, assessment procedure. At the end of our discussion, you will later be asked, okay, in the worksheet, the first worksheet, you will be asked later to draft or to write intended learning outcomes based on the given educational objectives. Ito ang pinagkaiba ng objectives sa learning outcomes class. Ang objectives, it is written in the perspective, they are written in the perspective of the teacher. Like you say, these are things that teachers will do. That is what we mean by educational objectives. Pero pag sinabi natin learning outcomes, these are things that our learners should do. Okay, yun yung pinagkaiba po ng educational objectives at learning outcomes. Later on sa inyong worksheet, ipapagawa ko sa inyo, siguro if we will finish our discussion today, okay, mapapagawa ko sa inyo isang worksheet to write a sample learning outcome based on the identified educational objective. Okay? So that's the first subtopic, okay, as regards from input-based to outcomes-based education. Okay? Ayon. Before we continue, okay, may we have a moment for, okay, a time for your clarificatory questions, for your supplemental ideas, or additional ideas to advance our understanding. Anyone? Anyone? Any clarification? Mayroon bang nais magbahagi ng kanyang natutunan sa unang bahagi ng ating talakayan? So a while back, we have Princess who asked a question. We also have Mar. Okay. How about the others? You might want to ask some questions, or you might want to add something, or you might want to share your initial learning from the first part of our discussion. Anyone? Okay, so sabi ni Rendon, si Ma Cristina, so sir, ang OBE is more practical and less theoretical po. It's both a theory and a practice. Because the theory, we will not be able to see, we will not be able to see the advantage of such theory without implementing it in our respective classrooms. Because sinasabi natin, a theory can only be valued if such theory, okay, is being applied to a concrete situation. That's why we're discussing outcomes-based education, because this is one way that we could fully understand what it is and why should we have to implement it in our respective classrooms. Okay, thank you, Rendon, for that, Christina, for that clarification. Okay? Any more question? None. Okay, sige. So we now continue. Yes, Princess.
Sir, so in simple, yung intended learning outcomes, ano yung malalaman ng students? Parang
Ano yung inaasahan mo na mauunawaan nila, inaasahan mo na gagawin nila, inaasahan mo na may pamalas nila pagkatapos ng talakayan.
yes, sir. Tapos yung assessment po is about measuring yung learning outcomes ng mga students.
Yes. Ibig sabihin, ano yung mga ebidensya na maipapakita ng mga mag-aaral na nakamit nga nila yung learning outcome, yung bunga ng pagkatuto.
Then yung learning activities po is yung paano nga, parang to make sure na meron talaga silang na-achieve para malaman din po ng mga students na meron kung paano nila i-apply yung mga natutunan nila. Ganun po.
Yes. The learning activities are things that we do, okay, to prepare our learners, towards the creation of the assessment or the evidence of learning. Okay? So, klaro yun. So, Princess has just been clarified of the differences of those three okay, important concepts in OBE. Thank you, Princess. Okay, any more?
No, sir. Sir,
Yes,
clarification
Mark?
again.
Uh,
Yeah, you have mentioned of the difference of learning outcome and objective. And once you told us that learning outcome yung pagkatuto, yung ano yung matututunan nila, gano'n. And parang naisip ko parang parehas sa objective. Pero ano yung pinagkaiba ulit?
Yeah, ang pinagkaiba niya ay si objective, ang mga layunin ay naisusulat para gawin ng guro. Okay, so nasa perspektibo siya ng guro. Samantala, ang learning outcome ay naisulat para gawin ng mga mag-aaral. For example, Mark, as a teacher, okay, at the end, in this lesson, okay, this is example objective. In this lesson, okay, I'll discuss the meaning of outcomes-based education. Or discuss the learning outcomes. Yun ang gagawin ko kasi yung tungkulin ko bilang guro, natalakayin kung ano ang mga bunga ng pagkatuto. With that objective now, na gagawin ko, what will I ask my students do after I'll discuss what learning outcomes are? Sabihin ko, at the end of this discussion, students are expected to write sample learning outcomes. So, yun yung pinagkaiba ng dalawa. Kaya kung makikita ninyo, ang lumang banghay aralin, okay, the old lesson plan, okay, it made use of learning objectives. And these learning objectives are particularly being achieved by the teacher, not being achieved by the students. But in outcomes-based education, it's the student doing, okay, the outcomes, doing what is expected of them, not the teacher. Okay, so yung pinagkaiba nung dalawa. Kaya later on sa inyong worksheet, merong ma-identify na educational objectives, tapos kayo ang mag-identify ng learning outcome base doon sa educational objective. Again, educational objectives are written in the teacher's perspective, while learning outcomes are written in the student perspective. Yun yung sinasabi nating nagiging student-centered and outcomes-based education because everything about the elements of the educational, everything about the teaching and learning process, okay, is about the learners. Okay?
Sir?
Yes, Jennifer?
Sir, so dito po sa
That
learning
will do, sir.
outcomes
Thank
is,
you. Thank you.
Okay. Sige, Jennifer. Thank you, Mark.
kagaya din po ba sa learning objectives na gagamitan ng tatlong domain, yung affective, psychomotor, and cognitive?
Yes, ideally. Okay? Parehas sila. Ang pinagkaiba lang talaga nila ay yung kung sino yung gagawa dun sa nasabing statement. Is it the teacher or is it the student? Kung si estudyante ang gagawa, that's outcome. Kung si teacher ang gagawa, that's objective. Okay? Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, how about the others? So yung mga iba, hindi naman tulog, no?
Sir,
Yes, Jomel.
Sir, I have watched the first segment dun sa online course. And then may I know the difference between since parang connected kasi closely related sila. The difference between the overall expectations and the learning outcomes, sir, kasi I think, sir, and I believe that these two terms are closely related about what students should learn. And so, what is the difference between the two, sir?
The overall expectations and the learning outcomes. Okay, so these are the difference. The overall expectation is about the whole course, the whole subject. Okay? And when we say learning outcomes, we are referring to the topics or to the units of the subject. Okay, for example, ito. Yung pinakita ko sa inyo sa ating syllabus nung last meeting, no? Pinakita ko sa inyo ang course learning outcomes. Yun ang equivalent ng overall expectations. Okay? Yung intended learning outcomes sa bawat lesson natin, ito yung tinatawag nating sample learning outcomes. Okay. Kaya ng dalawa. Overall expectations or course learning outcomes, okay, target the whole course or the whole subject. Okay? While the learning outcome or intended learning outcome is topical in nature. When I say topical in nature, it targets the topics. It targets each topic of the course or the subject. Okay, Jamel, claro?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good. Thank you for watching the videos. You're really making yourself productive. Because if you are not doing anything, please do start doing the requirement already. Because while you are watching, that's true, Jamel. While you are watching the tutorial, the videos, you can also be able to share something new in our discussion. Because the content of that video tutorial is a different content. Is another way to explain assessment of learning 1. Okay, that's why it's a requirement for you to complete. Okay, thank you, Jomel. Okay, about the others, I really love our discussion now because there are many of you who are sharing their ideas. Okay. No more? Okay then. So, may we continue our discussion? Balik tayo doon. Okay. So as I have said a while back, the author of Outcomes-Based Education is Dr. William Spady. And when we say Outcomes-Based Education as proposed by Spady, it's about the transformational OBE. And this is the term to describe beyond traditional OBE. Kasi may mga OBE, may mga outcomes-based education or OBE syllabus or OBE learning plan or OBE lesson plan na gumagamit pa rin ng objectives kaysa sa learning outcomes. And that's what we mean by traditional pa rin yun. Traditional pa rin ang dating niya because it's written in the perspective of the teacher. Kapag mas marami ang role ni teacher sa teaching and learning process, then that's traditional outcomes-based education. But transformational OBE, it's about putting premium, okay, to the role of the learners towards academic success. Okay. Now William Spady said, success in school is of limited benefit unless students are equipped to transfer that success to life in a complex, challenging, high-tech future. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, ang outcomes-based education, that outcomes-based education is all about transfer of learning. Okay? It's all about the highest level of understanding, which is creation. That learning is creating. That learning is not merely applying, but it's about creating. Going beyond of what you could apply in life. And that is to create something new out from what you have understood in class. That is transformational OBE. Okay? What else? What else describe? Okay? Kaya nga sabi ko, no, kanilagay ko yan, yung interview ko ng TLC. Okay? Sabi nila, sir, kailangan bang ipagpatuloy ang pagkatuto, okay, sa gitna ng pandemya? Ano ang atake mo dito, sir, sa issue ito? Hindi ba dapat merong academic freeze? Hindi ba dapat itigil muna ang pag-aaral? Hayaan muna na mawala ang pandemya bago pagpatuloy ng mga mag-aaral ang kanilang pag-aaral? And I always believe that we are in a changing world. And I think this is a great opportunity now to prepare our learners on how they are supposed to be adaptable, on how they are supposed to be flexible in life. Okay? Pabago-bago ang mundo. At sa tingin ko, tama lang na napersa ang mga eskwelahan, ang mga eskwelahan na pagpatuloy ang pagkatuto, pagpatuloy ang edukasyon sa gitna ng pandemya, dahil makatutulong din ito para lalo pang malinang sa mga mag-aaral ang kanilang kakayahang pambuhay, their life skills. Kaya nga sabi ko diyan, bagamat ang kalidad ng pagkatuto ay kaduda-duda sa pag-aaral online, lalo na't ito ay pinatupad na walang sapat na paghahanda ng mga paaralan, naniniwala po ako na ang pagpapatuloy ng pagkatuto ay kailangang sa pilitan sa katuparan. Dahil ang pagpapatuloy na ito sa gitna ng pandemya ay ang katuparan ng karapatang pang-edukasyon ng bawat individual. Naniniwala rin ako na sa pamamaraang online, ang kakayahang umangkop, that's being flexible or being adaptable, pagiging masining at maparaan ay lalo pang malinang sa mga mag-aaral. Ito ay mga kasanayan sa buhay na panigurado kakailanganin sa pansariling buhay o sa lugar ng trabaho man. Yun ang aking paniniwala. Okay? And outcomes-based education is all about this. Okay? Yung pipigain tayo para na sa ganun ay mailabas natin ang ating angking kakayanan, ang ating angking kasiningan, ang ating angking kakayahang umangkop sa kung anumang pagbabago ang mararanasan natin sa mundo, at yung kakayahang pagiging maparaan na things, no matter how the world is changing, if we are adaptable, we can always do something to adapt to changes, to live life even at the fullest, or to live a quality life amidst all these changes. Now, what else are the characteristics of outcomes-based education? First, it is outcome-defined, not calendar-defined. Di ba dati-rati, sabi ng teacher, kailangan matapos natin lahat ng nilalaman, we have to finish all the contents of the syllabus or the lesson plan. Kailangan matapos natin yung lesson plan. Kailangan ma-demonstrate natin kung ano nakalagay sa lesson plan within an hour, within 2 hours, kung ano man nakalagay dyan, kung ano man na nakaplano. That was a traditional teaching and learning. Because we are controlled by the time, we are controlled by the calendar. Na minsan, dahil sa paghahabol natin na matapos ang nilalamang pagkatuto na nakalagay sa ating banghay aralin, na nakalagay sa ating lesson plan o sa ating syllabus, ay nakakalimutan nating bigyang focus yung kung ano dapat ang kailangan maipakita, may pamahalas ng ating mga mag-aaral. Kaya, pag sinasabi natin transformational OBE, it has to be outcome defined. We do things because this has to be achieved. That this skill has to be demonstrated by our learners. We are not doing this because we have to follow the calendar, we have to follow what has been planned. No. Titigil lang tayo sa pagtatalakay ng nasabing paksa kung nakikita na natin na nakakamit na ng ating mga mag-aaral yung bunga ng pagkatuto na nais nating makamit nila. That is what we mean by outcome-defined and not calendar-defined. Second, expanded in opportunity and not constrained. Yung sabihin mo, okay, hanggang ito lang yung kaya kong ipagawa sa mga estudyante ko. That's being constrained. Okay? Hanggang dito lang. Pag okay na, pag tapos na, tapos na. Pero paano yung mga slow learners? Paano yung mga, kasi tandaan po natin na hindi pantay-pantay kagalingan ng ating mga mag-aaral. We have diverse learners inside the classroom. And the diversity of our learners, okay, are rooted from their different skills, their different orientation, their different culture, their different expectations, their different capacities, and others. Maraming kadahilanan kung bakit magkakaiba-iba ang klase ng mga mag-aaral na meron tayo sa klase. At kung ililimitahan lang natin ang mga gawain pagkatuto sa kung ano ang nakaplano sa ating banghay-aralin, then that is being constrained. We have to provide more opportunities for our learners to learn the material. And how to expand the opportunities. Kapag hindi na unawaan ng estudyante yung ating tinalakay, dapat lamang na magbigay tayo ng oportunidad sa kanila upang lalo pang maunawaan ang nasabing talakayan. Hindi pwede na, okay, tapos na, without even considering whether our students, okay, sorry for the term, no, pero ito yung old term na ginagamit natin, yung slow learners. But actually, there's no such thing as slow learners. In the 21st century teaching and learning, hindi dapat natin tawagin na slow learners yung mga estudyante na hindi nakakagets kaagad dun sa mga tinatalakay natin. Hindi nyo ba alam na itong mga klase ng mga mag-aaral na ito ay kailangan lang ng mahabang oras, kailangan lamang nila ng maraming mga materyales, maraming mga resources nang sa ganun ay matuto. Okay? And this is what we mean by expanded opportunity. Okay, hindi tayo titigil, okay, hanggat hindi natututo, hanggat hindi nauunawaan ng ating mga mag-aaral yung ating tinatalakay sa loob ng klase. It is based on performance credentialing and not custodial. Okay? What do you mean by custodial? Diba our teachers before, okay, they will just have to monitor the activities that we are doing. You do this, you do that, you do this and you do that, or else you follow the procedure, or else that's being custodial. Okay, prescriptive way of checking students' learning. That's custodial. Okay, ganito. You follow this. This is the only procedure. This is the only procedure that you need to follow. Okay, this is the only formula that you need to use in solving this math problem. But in outcomes-based education, it's more on how students, okay, will perform, how students will do it by themselves. Okay, we allow them to be themselves when they do the task. Kasi even if we provide them one problem and there would only be one answer to that problem, students' diversity would tell us that they have different ways on how to do things. That is performance credentialing. Okay? Yung tatawag natin performance credentialing. Okay? So we will end on that part of the presentation. It's 5:54 in the evening. 5:54 p.m. So for those who did not recite, okay, may I ask you to please share. Okay, you just have to share one learning takeaway, okay, from our discussion. Except for Princess, Mar, Rendan, Jennifer Dulin, tama? Jennifer Dulin and Jomel. May I request the others to please share your learning takeaway in the chat box, please. You have 5 minutes to do that.
Sir?
Yes, Jomel?
Sir, may I leave early because I am assigned to live stream the rosary at 6 o'clock.
Okay, sige.
Sige. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir. I
Yes,
have a question.
Yes,
Ay,
Mark.
out of topic to, pero a friend asked me ngayon lang, at close na ba enrollment sa USL, sir? Close na enrollment USL?
Yes.
Tapos na?
Yes, it's already closed.
Okay.
We are just currently attending to returning students whose application has been forwarded last week. But for this week, we will no longer accept enrollees. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So the others, except for Princess Mar Rendon, Jennifer Dulin, and Jomel Magborang. Please share your learning takeaway in the chat box. Okay, thank you, Dario and Kathleen. We still also wait for the others to share their learning takeaway.
Sir?
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I browsed my Neo LMS and yung assessment dun sa assessment learning 1, learning takeaway number 1. So for me, different question kasi wala ko yesterday.
Yeah.
Or
I'll post later
yeah.
on Friday. Okay, the question for
Okay.
the next class, the next group. That's what you are to answer.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sige.
Wait.
Thank you, Razlin, for sharing your learning takeaway. I'm also seeing Jude, Eileen, Shantana. Okay, it's 6:01 already. So as we have started our class with a beautiful prayer by Mar Teodoro Mora, may we also end our class with a beautiful prayer, a beautiful closing prayer from Razlin Mark Laser Kining. Razlin, please put on your
Sir,
camera.
ano po yun, sir?
Yes, Ading. Please lead us the closing prayer.
Ay.
Please put on your camera.
Sige po, sir. Saglit lang. All together we say, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Lord, thank you for this day. We praise and thank you for the gift and love you've given to us, and for the knowledge shared by our teacher. We pray this to your powerful name. Amen. In the name of the Father,
Father,
Son,
the Son, and
Holy
the Holy Spirit.
Spirit. Amen.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Razlin.
sir.
Thank you, Razlin, for the beautiful prayer, and thank you, everyone, for attending our class. I hope that you have learned something from our discussion today. So we will meet on Monday. Then Tuesday we might not meet on Tuesday next week, but Monday we will certainly meet because um, our schedule for conferencing is Monday, every Monday. Then Tuesday is an opportunity for you to complete the assessment. Okay, so we'll continue our discussion on Monday prior to your assessment on Tuesday. Okay, and I hope that you maintain your attendance in our video conference because certainly every video conference you will be asked to do a sharing of your learning takeaway. So again, thank you so much. Have a nice night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
God
you,
bless.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Goodbye
sir.
po. Bye,
Bye-bye.
sir.
Bye
Thank you,
po.
sir. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.